Hello one and all, welcome to Seeing Through Glass. I'm at Ferrari.
Now, when I say I'm at Ferrari, I of course mean I'm in Maranello, home of Ferrari since its inception in 1939. Today it houses factories for the road cars, the F1 team, it's got a museum, there's a shop, there's VIP restaurants, and in the middle of it all, the iconic Ferrari racetrack, Fiorano, which is where I'm going to be based today.
Now, unlike some of my previous visits, I'm not actually here to check out a new car today. Instead, I've been invited by Ferrari to take part in one of their Corso Pilota Classiche programs, which essentially allows some of their customers to kind of get up to speed some of their older cars. They do that by allowing said customers to go out on track in some of their old cars. So yeah, today I'm going to be driving classic Ferraris around Ferrari's own test and racetrack. I mean, yeah, as I said, good day, very good day.
So let me introduce you to the three cars today's activities will be focused around. A 1970s 308, a 1980s Mondial, and a 1990s 550 Maranello.
You might be thinking it's not the most iconic lineup of Ferraris ever, but firstly I would fight you on that because I think all Ferraris are iconic, but secondly it's not really what today's all about. You've got to remember that these days Ferrari customers come in all different shapes and sizes. There are the big collectors paying tens of millions of pounds for 50s and 60s race cars from Ferrari. There are the nerds like me obsessing over modern classic Schumacher era cars, and then the newer customers who are lapping up things like the SF90XX and the Daytona SP3. Well, some of those customers have never experienced an older Ferrari. Dare I say it, some of them never driven a manual Ferrari. Which means that, well, some of these cars are either just gathering dusts in collections as investments, or, well, people are too nervous to go out and buy them because they think they wouldn't really know how to drive them or enjoy them. And despite the cliches, despite what you might think, Ferrari do actually want their customers to drive their cars.
Ferrari has a whole range of courses and activities specifically aimed at encouraging their customers to use their cars, whether it's driving courses or historic rallies or even race series. But this Classiche program is really focused around helping customers hone their skills in older cars. It's not going to be for everyone, but it's a great way to showcase the heritage of the brand to new customers and an awesome excuse for nerds like me to jump into a load of Ferraris I had never driven on track before, starting with the 308 GTB, which of course made its debut at the Paris and London motor shows in 1975, replacing the iconic Dino. It was designed by Pininfarina, and the first models had fiberglass bodies, made around 255 horsepower from a 2.9-litre V8, and is probably most famous for being the car of choice in the iconic TV show Magnum PI. What do you need to tell me?
Nothing.
Oh, okay, that's worrying.
It's up to you.
Sure. The pedals are a little bit offset, huh? So you got to get used to that. Pedals a little bit
there,
to the right.
It's like this, and especially the helmets obliged to drive in a position with the hand straight, but the steering will become really tough.
Yes.
Okay, clutch down, first gear down.
Dogleg first gear. Okay.
Remove the car at the exit.
Okay. Yeah, my seating position is definitely awkward. Or compromised, let's say. Compromised, yeah. You know what's immediately surprising me? I know we're going 4/10, if that, is how eager this thing is. Back in the day, this must have felt like an absolute rocket ship. Brakes, though, definitely have been a big improvement over the years because, yeah, you've got to remember they're not carbon ceramics. I know someone in a Golf R would come flying past me right now, but I guarantee they wouldn't have as big a smile on their face as I would. I'm in a freaking Ferrari, a Fiorano, and it's a manual, and it smells of leather and petrol, probably because I nearly flooded the engine trying to start it. I'll let somebody else come and help me. Okay. Tiny bit of gas.
Just a moment. Now get. Little.
Just a little?
Yes. Just a little.
There's the pro there, you see?
Okay, here's our moment, people. Out onto the straight, we've got to be a little bit careful past the pits, and then we get to open this thing up. Lift off the gas for 2 seconds, get to the bridge, 3rd gear. Come on, 308, what's this all about? Woo-hoo-hoo! Thank you very much. I hope Ferrari don't hear me say this, but I'd happily come to these events, not even drive the cars. Like, I just like hanging out here. Every time I get sort of spare 5 minutes, they're like, okay, Sam, you have a break. I'm like, let's go exploring. I'm just wandering around, finding nooks and crannies and amazing spaces. Yesterday we had a full-on factory tour. I wasn't able to film it, but I was like, oh, that's amazing. We went to dinner with some of the Ferrari team, and I was like, I love you all. I'm too much of a nerd. I need to dial it back and be a bit critical. You know, like this wood, like they could make this wood better somehow. Anyway, first driving experience of the day, the 308 GTB. I mean, not really a car that I've ever lusted after, maybe not my era. Pretty damn cool, and a lot more fun than I realised. We went out this morning to do some of the sort of initial training or learning. It was so wet, so I never really got any of the cars, well, to feel like they were moving around. And whilst this was a short experience, or a shorter experience just now, the car really came to life, and it felt so urgent. As I say, back in the 70s, that thing must have felt like a 296 feels today. And I understand why Ferrari chose to kind of kick us off in the 308, because in my mind, it's the perfect example of a car that's really going to sort of take advantage of the Classic A program moving forward. I think right now the Classic A program is most attractive to the owners of 50s and 60s cars, because if you don't know, essentially it takes advantage of Ferrari's insane archive system. Ferrari has one of the craziest archiving systems I've ever seen, and it's thanks to Enzo Ferrari, who not only seemed to be obsessed with sort of detail, but also just amassing information. Every single car that has left the Ferrari factory from day one until today carries its own little passport with so much information in it, from, well, design of certain elements through to the numbers of the specific nuts and bolts that have gone into that car, through to correspondence with the owner or the dealership. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, for example, Sterling Moss ordered this iconic kind of pastel green 250 GTO back in the day, and in the folder for that specific car, which is, you know, done by chassis number, they have the correspondence with Sterling Moss and the sample they used for the paint sample of the colour. And so yes, right now, if you have a car from the 50s and 60s where over the years maybe it crashed in a race and was put back together in a different order, or parts were swapped or shared, or it's been restored, etc, etc, you can come to the Classic A department, give them your chassis number, they bring out the folder and go, okay, so on the 4th of April 1962 your car was built this way, this way, this way, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's right. They can actually sort of almost bring cars back to life, which happened. Another example they gave was a car that was bought in Japan. It was sent back to them here in Italy. The owner knew it didn't have matching numbers, the engine and the chassis were different, but that was fine. In his own time, the owner found the engine, which was in another car in the Netherlands, arranged for that car to be sent here. Ferrari brought out the folders and realised that back in the day, the two cars were in the factory, at the workshop at the same time, and one of the customers was harassing the workshop saying, I need my car now, I need my car now. And what they did was take the engine from another car, put it in so they could release it earlier, which is insane. So then some 50 years later, the engines were swapped back. So I really see the benefit to owners of those cars for the program right now. And so the 308 is going to kind of be the next iteration of that. Whilst maybe the stories, the history of the cars isn't going to be as insane, well, the cars have been around for such a long time that, well, during that time, who knows what's happened to them. They've changed value, they've changed hands, paint, specification, options, materials used, all will be different. So as they become collector grade cars, which they're slowly starting to become, you're going to want to come back here and say, right, what have I actually bought, what have I actually got? And that's what that Classic A stamp or certification can offer. I don't know what's going to happen when you start getting into the cars behind me, SF90s, things like that. And even for my car, which now does qualify for the Classic A program, it's any car that is 20 years or older. Like, it's hard to know. Maybe in another 50 years people are going to want to find out the originality of a Cian Stradale, especially if I'm going to go and repaint mine and put a different sound system and things like that. But yeah, it feels like the digital age maybe has removed the need. So potentially, Classic is always going to be there to keep Ferrari's heritage in place. And let's face it, Ferrari today would not be what it is without the heritage and the history. That has to stay alive. That has to be continued to be celebrated and understood, not just by customers, but by enthusiasts and by the car world. So by Classic operating, that's what I guess it allows it to do. So yeah, I don't knock it. It's an expensive but I think important thing. Have I been waffling? I feel like I've been waffling, so let's go drive some more cars.
So next up, I jump behind the wheel of the Mondial. Now, the Mondial gets a bad rep these days, but it was a fairly successful car for Ferrari back in the day. Sold over 6,000 units and was produced in various forms from 1980 all the way through to 1993. It actually tends to be the most popular car during these Classic courses because it's kind of like the most accessible one. It's accessible power, it's got an easy-to-use gearbox, great visibility, good handling, etc., etc. I wish I could share some kind of onboard driving impressions or reactions, but I need to let you in on a bit of a secret. This day was definitely a day of two halves. The morning, which was when we were supposed to be really getting our chance to experience the Classic course, took place during a full-on monsoon. It was kind of impossible to push on in the cars or really get a feeling for what they were all about. So most of the footage you're actually seeing in this video was filmed right at the end of the day when the track suddenly dried up, and Ferrari very kindly gave me 2 laps in each of the cars to go back out and record some thoughts for all of you. Problem was, all the cars were cold by then. They'd been sitting around for a few hours, and the Mondial especially just wasn't really behaving at its best with the cold engine and cold gearbox. So I had to take it pretty slow and pretty easy, meaning it wasn't that engaging. So long story short, let's move on to the 550 Maranello.
Now, not to be rude about any of the other cars today, but this is the one I'm most excited about. Just because this is like my era. It's the era I grew up with. There's a lot of launch imagery which Michael Schumacher was involved with, which for me is a big win. And a lot of this is familiar to the 360, which I used to own in my Challenge Stradale and stuff. So
the same.
Yeah.
My first day here, it was with the 360 with the 550 Maranello.
Ah, okay. Yeah, and obviously the amazing manual gearbox. So I should be fairly familiar, but obviously completely different to a 360. Front engine V12, big GT car that I think will probably surprise me at how capable it is out there, I would imagine. So
Time that I enjoy a lot with this, it was in Corso Pilota Classic on ice.
ah, yes.
This, unbelievable.
Yes, okay.
All the circuit like this, sliding, pendulum effect, all the circuit.
Mm-hmm. I can see
Really
that.
enjoy.
Okay, so go straight away.
First gear must be different.
Yep, no longer dogleg first, it's more traditional 6-speed. And tradition, as is the case with these gated, as a lot of my viewers will know, when it's cold, everything's a bit sticky. So it all usually becomes a bit smoother as things warm up. But yeah, that first gear, I'm very familiar with because of my old car. Okay, out on the track, let's go. Oh, this is nice, people. This is very nice. If I only had some rear seats, I might be looking to buy one of these, but wait, that's the 612 Scaglietti. Yeah, this thing is it's a whole nother creation, and you can I think you can bring this much closer to the modern stuff. Like if you had an F12 and you got one of these, you'd be like, okay, it kind of makes sense, especially, well, you couldn't get the 550, of course, with the F1 gearbox, but you could the 575. Things are now starting to come together. I mean, look, scarily, I actually want to start playing with this thing, which I shouldn't today. Got to take it easy. These cars are in good nick and well looked after, but there are a lot of people who have to drive them. The last thing I want to do is make a mistake, but it really gets up and goes, this thing. It's funny because that V12 sounds so different to the modern V12 cars from Ferrari that sort of really sing with a high pitch. This thing is smoother, which is rewarding in its own way, but boy, the power kind of therefore surprises you, because it just pulls you down the road, but with like not much fanfare. I wonder what it sounds like from the back, but definitely more reminiscent of the early Ferrari V12s. Okay, lift off here a little bit, get to our bridge, and yeah, I like me a 550. What a thing! Ah. They offer one of these programs at St. Moritz on the ice And apparently this car is absolutely hilarious there, because it is just a drift machine, and I can understand why. The weight distribution, the handling. Oh, I love this car, people. What a revelation. I think having that gated manual as well, it's just so much more together. It's helping you, it's aiding you, like all the modern cars, just feel like and look like a much better driver. Pick of the bunch so far. Ferrari keeps saying that there's a surprise after lunch. Haven't worked out what that might be yet. Some of us are hoping it's a 250 GTO, but I think unlikely. Okay, let's make it round the rest of this track without bidding it.
Once I got back to the pit, I discovered the surprise Ferrari had been teasing all day. Sitting pretty in the iconic Fiorano pit box, a stunning 365 GTB4 Daytona, one of Ferrari's most iconic cars, and our chance to experience a true 60s Ferrari.
Now you're going to have to forgive me because, well, I might get a little emotional here. As amazing as today is, and as amazing as all these cars are, this is quite an outrageous moment. You find me sitting in a 365 GTB4, or more commonly known as a Daytona. Just a reminder, obviously Ferrari never called this a Daytona. I believe the media, people like me, I'm a media person, gave this car the nickname Daytona after Ferrari's big success at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Came out in 1968 as kind of the answer to the Miura, but of course this car, front engine still, not mid-engine. The first sort of mid-engined car from Ferrari came later, the 365. I've now had a complete mind blank because I'm so overwhelmed by this moment. You know what I'm talking about. So let's focus on, yes, this experience, which is quite a special experience. And Ferrari are reminding me of that. They keep calling it a gift. These cars are worth about £500,000 or £600,000 these days, and this particular car is quite an early one, and apparently the gearbox is a little fragile, and they don't have many spares, so it's going to be a bit of a cruise, but quite an overwhelming and splendid cruise. First thing I'm going to tell you, the clutch, quite heavy in comparison to all the other cars that we've been experiencing today. This feels immediately quite a bit older. I'm sitting pretty low in comparison to the bonnet line, and everything else about this car is, yes, reminding me that we're in a different era. Now, I have been lucky enough to drive a Ferrari of this era before, but not quite a factory car. It was the GTO Engineering's 250 short wheelbase, which I can't quite remember how it started life, but I think potentially as a 330 or something like that. Like, so this is one of the most authentic pre-Fiat Ferrari experiences I've ever had. This really was, well, I'm going to call it the last truly original Ferrari GT car. Let's not forget that we didn't get another front engine GT from Ferrari until the 550. It was all the mid-engine stuff because, well, people believe that was the way to go. This thing was an icon, and it still is an icon. And for a long, it was the fastest production GT car in the world when it came out. Can you believe 0 to 60? It was like 5.4 seconds in 1968. I'm going to tell you straight away, at these relatively low speeds, this thing is already moving around quite a lot. It's a totally otherworldly experience, and just listen to the anger of that engine. That's what I love about these early V12s. It is just a beastly thing, and once I make it around the lap, I will open it up a little bit on that straight. But yeah, you just, oh, big pigeon. We nearly crashed into a pigeon there. That would have been potentially the most embarrassing way to cause damage to this car. But yeah, oh. Now, obviously, Fiorano circuit didn't actually open until 1972, so the Daytona wouldn't have been sort of tested and developed out here, but I mean the Ferrari factory is right there. I mean I can basically see it. So for me, as the Ferrari freak that I am, this is quite an otherworldly experience. As I keep saying, driven some cool cars today, and I've been out here on this track in some amazing modern cars, but boys and girls, a plexiglass Daytona. Right, here we go, come on, let's not mess around. A lot of patience on the gearbox, but that sound, and it does pick up and go. The kind of craziest part is how much the front bonnet lifts up towards you. This is a perfect demonstration of what, you know, weight balance, weight distribution used to be like back in the day before electronics got involved. Brakes, not as awful as you might think. Trying to bring the revs up. Oh, and my seats moved forward. For me, it's just the emotion. I am that gentleman racer. I just want to be a cooler human being behind the wheel of a car like this. The steering wheel. I need a wooden steering wheel. Would it be weird to have a wooden steering wheel in a Challenge Ferrari? Potentially. Now, listen to that. Oh my God, it's a car that wants you to absolutely floor it. Yeah, I'm just not quite brave enough to do so. The thing which kind of blows my mind the most is just the movement that you feel to hustle one of these things. Firstly, you're going to have a few more muscles than me, but also just have to be on the brave pill and really think about what you're doing at all times. Steering wheel's also massive. Boys and girls, I am driving a Daytona around Fiorano. I can go home. I don't need to do anything else for the rest of the year. This is just silly. I just saw the Ferrari logo on the hill. Oh, this is the moment I'm going to cry. I'm being hounded by the 308 behind me. Whoever's in that, it's like, oh God, that damn slow Daytona. I'm not even going to go down into second gear. I'm just flowing it all together. I'm off to buy some little biscotti from some beautiful Tuscan bakery. Just be damn cool whilst I do it. Oh. Those blips, this engine is alive. I've lost track of how many years later, because, oh, that thing! Into the hairpin. Oh, seat goes way forward, so that's always a bit unnerving. Turns it in. Oh, it does bite. I mean, the front end is not messing around. This is too addictive. This truly is a gift. Ferrari have been telling me all day it's a gift, and they were right. This is a good gift. Oh, I can feel myself starting to get carried away, so I'm going to brake really early into this hairpin, because the last thing I want to do is mess this up. Also, from the other journalists that are here today, everyone has been waiting for this experience. I don't want to make any mistakes. Boys and girls, you haven't experienced Ferrari until you've experienced one of these early V12s. It just, yeah, fills my heart with goodness. Oh, what a day! What a day! Of course, as we end the day, the sun has come out. The majority of the driving experience today was in the rain earlier this morning. I didn't film much of it because I was like, well, it's not that dynamic, and it was supposed to dry up a bit, but it wasn't supposed to be clear blue sky and sunshine. Anyway, I'm not going to complain because it's still been an amazing day. And despite that wild Daytona experience right now, which did get all the Ferrari heart pumping, it's been the pick of the bunch for me today, probably because, well, it's my era. I cannot escape just lusting after every Ferrari built from like 95 to 2015. And as I said when I was behind the wheel of this car, I had previously written off the 550, but now I kind of adore it. And look at this setting here with the sun now beaming down on what I assume is Rosso Corsa paint. Imagine collecting your car back in the day like this. I mean, a lot of people would actually do it back at the factory gate, but still I can imagine, and I'm pretty sure Schmee's collected a few cars in this Michael Schumacher Piazza, so it could be possible. still, 550 Barcato is still for me the pinnacle on one day. But there's a part of me that's like, should I just go, you know, insane and somehow add another car to the lineup? No, I'm getting carried away, I'm getting silly. But look, what today has proven to me once again, not that it needed to be proven to me, is just how important the history is of this brand. And I think for those of you that are coming to it new or with fresh eyes and getting excited by the modern products, that is fantastic. But don't be scared by this kind of stuff or the older stuff. Of course, this car's been meticulously maintained by the Classico program, as have all the cars that we've driven today, and that's the whole point of that program existing. But as I've experienced and learned, there are loads of amazingly talented independent specialists out there, probably some good Ferrari dealerships too, who can keep these cars running to a point where you can thrash them out on track, on long road trips, on adventures, and continue to live that life. Like I mentioned really early on, Ferrari do actually want customers to drive their cars. Heck, they kind of wanted them to race them back in the day. And so I don't believe, and there's plenty of mottos and posters in and around Ferrari factory, Enzo himself ever thought the cars, well, would just be sort of valuable items that people wouldn't go near. I realise if you're paying £40 million for a car, you might not want to drive it every day, but these things in the UK, 75 or 80 grand? Oh, I don't know, it's hard to resist. Anyway, I'm going to get sunburned now, which I never thought would happen. Feels like maybe I've got caught up in the Ferrari dream enough today. I've spieled the spiel, I've drunk the Kool-Aid, and I'll wrap things up there. I think this Corso Pilota program is definitely for those of you that maybe haven't yet experienced older Ferraris, are tempted to get into that, or just bought them and want to understand how to get the maximum out of things like heel and toe and setting the car up for corners and things like that. If you're already a more experienced driver, I think you're probably going to know how to get the best out of these cars. But it's still worthwhile coming to do, or at least coming to visit the Classico program, just to understand the information, the legacy, the heritage. Anyway, I'll wrap things up there, because I'm basically a Ferrari employee at this point. So let's call things quits. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you have. Stay subscribed for plenty more videos to come.